Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, and today we have with us another special guest, and she goes by the name of Cathy Lanzalaco. Now, Cathy was a nurse turned career coach turned resume writer, but the story of how she transcended all careers is a fascinating one to listen to, so I'm so excited to have her on the show. We're really going to get into when she started, because she was doing her thing back in the 80s, and she's going to describe for us the landscape of what it was like to be in medical sales from a nurse's perspective in the 80s, and then of course what it was like afterwards, her role as she transitioned to career coach and resume writer, and then we're going to get into the details of how to write an effective resume for medical sales. So of course, if you're someone that's trying to get in the industry, then this is an episode you absolutely need to pay attention to. And in celebration of Nurses Week, we're again happy to have Cathy on this episode for this interview. So as always, we do our best to bring you guests that are innovative, doing things differently, changing the game within medical sales. And I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Hey, Cathy, how are we doing today?
Hey, Samuel. Great. How are you?
Fantastic. No complaints. So, Cathy, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Cathy Lanzalaco. I am the CEO of Inspire Careers. I'm a professional career coach and professional resume writer, and I help people land jobs and build careers in less time than going it alone.
Ooh, I love that line. Okay, so tell me this, Cathy. You know, you're really unique because you actually started off as a nurse that eventually became a resume writer. That's a first for me. So take us back. You know, tell us about what could you start as a nurse? Well, how long were you a nurse? Where were you a nurse? Give us a little bit of that story.
Yeah. Well, I was a nurse back in the 80s, so we'll just kind of take it back that far. The days of the big hair and the white uniforms and the caps. All right. So that's how long ago. And, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of different opportunities for nurses at the time, but I loved nursing. I still do. I'm a nurse at heart. And I worked for 15 years at a local hospital. And I loved it, worked all kinds of floors. It was a teaching hospital. So for those of you that are involved in that, you know how challenging that can be. Worked a lot of different floors, worked in surgery for a while, and did discharge planning. So I saw all of it end to end. And then I had an opportunity to leave the hospital and do case management. So I did case management working from my home before remote work was really a thing, again, back in the late 90s by this time. And I did case management and went with clients of insurance companies to their doctor's appointments to try to expedite care for them, to help them get back to work faster or to minimize the insurance company's loss. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was a great use of my nursing.
So before we even go further, so let's go back to nursing. You were a nurse. You said you started in the 80s. So 80s to what, mid 90s?
Yeah, I graduated in 1984 and I worked in the hospital until 1997. So 15 years bedside nursing.
All right. So a lot of our audience are people that want to get into medical sales or people that are already in medical sales. Let's talk about it. You know, what was the scene like for medical sales reps back, you know, between 85 and 95? You know, give us a scenario. What was it like?
Yeah. Well, you know, when my interaction with them at the hospital, when they would come in to meet with some of the doctors there, and I know a lot of times they met at them with their offices, but they did come into the hospitals and they met with the pharmacists as well. And so the interaction that I had with them back then, the relationships back then were very transactional. Right. They came in, they were trying to get their medication formulary. They were doing whatever, trying to get the docs to accept it. And I have seen over time the evolution of the relationship management and really the holistic patient care. You know, since then, back in the 80s, you know, things were in these little silos. Right. And, you know, we was just starting to touch on the real benefit of interdisciplinary care and really strengthening the peer review for the providers and so forth. And, so it was still pretty siloed at that time. And, you can fast forward now and you see how really those relationships with the providers have been developed with the medical sales professionals. It's just all the transactional about the medications or the devices, if it's capital devices, whatever it is that they're selling. But it's really about partnering to ensure the best patient outcomes. And it's so much more of a holistic approach now than it ever was before. Back in the 80s, it was just a different world.
Got it. Completely different world. Okay. So I know a lot of nurses that when they come to the end of their career, they're thinking about no longer doing bedside. They get into case management. And you mentioned you got into case management. So take us back. When did you get into case management? What year was it?
That was 1997, and a fellow nurse of mine, we were both doing discharge planning at the time. And for those of you that are familiar with that, that is setting up home care services for people, getting people set up to go to nursing homes, things like that, helping people move from the acute care setting into something else. And a friend of mine, we were in discharge planning together, and she had gotten a job at a national case management company and said, Cathy, this might be a great step for the next part of your career. I get to work from home. I get to go into physicians' offices. I meet directly with clients one-on-one as opposed to, the chaos of the hospital. It wasn't weekends. And I'll tell you what, I still haven't gotten over not working weekends 25 years later. I still appreciate it. Yeah. So I applied for the job and I got it. And in 1997, I started doing case management, and I did that for 3 years. And what a great way for nurses also to leverage their experience, helping insurance companies, helping clients, being that conduit with the doctors to be able to get the approvals for things that they need for testing and whatever that they need for their patients. Just very similar to medical sales, right? Trying to be that conduit for improving patient outcomes.
Absolutely. And just so people can have a little bit of context, give us just a little bit more on the difference between bedside nursing and being a case manager as a nurse, because a lot of nurses, now nurses know they can become clinical educators, medical sales reps to some capacity. And some might be listening to this episode right now and they might be new. So case management might still be something that they're not even considering right now. So again, give us the differences between being a bedside nurse and case management nursing.
Sure. Yeah. Bedside nursing was actually running a team where, we had the floors. I was assigned to a floor, and we had teams that we were assigned to on a daily basis. And usually it was the nurse, maybe an LPN. I was an RN, and I might have an LPN helping me or a couple of aides. And I was in charge of all of the care for my, 15, 20 patients, whatever it was. And that meant everything from medication administration to wound care to vitals taking. And this was the days before technology. Now there's a nurse, they use the Epic system and they're online and they're charting. We did not have any of this. We had paper charts. We were writing our care plans down.
Can't even imagine. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I remember working at a hospital as an LPN when they got their first CAT scan machine. Like, that was a big deal at a different hospital. But so it was very rudimentary in some ways from how far it's come over time, but it was very hands-on, very hands-on. We'd meet with the docs. They'd come do their rounds. They would give us orders verbally too. We would change medications on the floor. Those were the days we mixed our own chemo. I worked on an oncology floor. We actually did it on the floor. So, it was a big different time for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, and of course, precautions. We had people in isolation. Of course, we didn't have COVID back then, but, we had MRSA and different things that people might recognize, so we had those type of procedures. But it was really very hands-on care. And it's very, very rigorous. And for the nurses that are in hospital practice right now, it was swinging shifts. Even if you were assigned a day shift, you had to do your rotations to the other shifts, and you worked every other weekend, and you had to do holidays and all these things. And, I don't know, from my perspective, when I was young and before I was married and had kids, it wasn't a big deal, and then, but that's the beauty of nursing, is that there's so many other things you can do that fits in and grows with your lifestyle, right? Absolutely. So if you want to stop working weekends, or maybe you need to work nights because that's the best thing for your family, and because your partner works a different shift or whatever. That's the beauty of nursing, is you can always find a job doing something, leveraging your experience and finding that schedule that you want. But when I
Absolutely.
left bedside nursing, I went to do discharge planning in the same hospital, setting up people for the next step of their care. And then that's when I went to do case management. And case management is when you are actually taking control, you're orchestrating is really a better term, of one particular person's care with the provider, with the insurance company, with
Gotcha.
the x-ray place, right? So
I see.
I was that point person to try to put it all together to make sure that our patient got the best care in an expedient manner, cost effectively. Try to troubleshoot what's happening in the home. How can I
Sure.
help? Do you need
Sure.
linkage to social work or whatever the case may be? So again, very hands-on, but
Right.
not in a uniform,
Right.
controlling my own time, making my own appointments outside of when I had to go to doctor's appointments with my client. But it required me to have vast clinical knowledge so that I could go with them to whether it was an orthopedic doctor or if I was going with them because they had maybe they had been involved in a car accident and they needed pain control, pain management. Right. So I had to be familiar with that. So, Gary, another great way to be able to tap into this huge base of knowledge that nurses have without having directly to be at the bedside.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then from case management, why did you leave case management and what did you go on to do?
Well, I got an opportunity then to do medical case management for a local grocery retailer in the area that I work at. So, to give you some context about that, what that is for anybody that grocery shops, right? There's a whole business behind how these products get on the shelves. And
Sure.
so the people that stock the products, the people that manage the other people, the people that are working the registers, they may hurt themselves in the course of their work. They drop a box on their foot. They slip on something in the seafood department.
Right.
And so that's where I came in is I managed the workers' comp claims. So it was a great job to go from managing all these clients and all these insurance companies to this actually very prestigious, at the time, it was a very prestigious retailer. And so I got to work right in their headquarters and help their clients, their employees directly. And so I would help get them back to work faster. So return to work programs, I helped create those. I helped talk to the doctors to expedite MRIs. Could we work out light duty for them? Could we, transitional work? What do we need to do, doc, to get this guy back to work? How many hours a week can they work? I'll help work with the store manager to arrange that. So doing that. And I loved that job, absolutely loved that job because I shopped there. And is there a better thing than to be able to support businesses that you support,
sense.
that you love,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Makes
So
perfect sense.
that was awesome. And I did that for a couple of years. And then that position went away. And I said to my boss, I said, well, there's not anything left for me to do here then if this position goes away because they outsourced it to someone else. And I said, but I'll tell you what, I just saved you a lot of money working on your workers' comp claims. How about you allow me the ability to start a disability management program? I'll do the same thing for your disability claims. So when people have heart attacks that have nothing to do with work, they have heart attacks at home. Maybe they have problem pregnancies. They can't manage their diabetes well, whatever it is, and now they're paying costs for disability. Let me save you some money there. So my boss said, "What a great idea, Cathy!" But to do that,
so you created your role.
I did.
Nice.
I created my own job. And so they said, to do that, though, we're going to put you in the human resources department because it interfaces a lot with benefits and with human resources. So that's a good place for you to sit. Go ahead, go save us some money.
Got it.
So
Got it.
I went to the human.
Your start in HR.
Yeah. And that's how I got my start in HR. I was a nurse working in HR and getting people back to work sooner, saving the company some money. Sure. And then just like everybody experiences now. Now, this was 2003, late 2003. Okay. Just like everybody still is seeing today, nothing's changed here is, wow, my job went away again, right? Who cannot relate to that, right? So the position went away, not because of anything in particular, other than they were restructuring the department, sharing service with another sister company. And there, again, my job went away. So here I am, a nurse sitting in the HR department, and I don't have a job again. And so I go back to my boss again, the SVP of Human Resources, and I said to him, I said, I know you don't have any more room for a nurse here. I said, but I see that the position of compensation and benefits manager is open. I'm not qualified to do that job, but why don't you give it to me and let me figure it out? And so my very forward thinking boss at the time said, well, you know what? We could probably say that you probably know a little bit more about benefits than most people because a lot of them have to do with the healthcare piece.
Yeah.
And the compensation piece and really all the administrative and regulatory compliance. He said, I think you can figure that out. But most importantly, he said, we're only going to have this job for 1 year. How much damage can you do? He said, you can have it, do what you can with it. And so I did. I took over the job and I had no idea about compensation practices. I didn't know the first thing about benefits other than how to file a medical claim. I didn't know anything. But that's when I went back to school and I got a business degree. And then I went back and I got an MBA. And that's when I started then saying, I kind of like HR. I think I could do this. Maybe my job won't keep going away. So I got certifications in HR and I kept taking on assignments and I studied and I really just learned what HR was about. I had no idea. I was not a business person. Not at all. I was a nurse. And then I worked in that job for 7 years until one day that job finally, it actually got changed into a few different things, but it did go away eventually.
Okay.
And then there was a sister company that needed another compensation and benefits manager. I took that job and I held that job for 12 years. And I ran an HR department for 600 people at a distribution center.
And wow.
That was a huge job. Huge job. And
what
by then I was
biggest... You said by then what?
By then I was an HR leader and I was sitting at the table with the other executives and nobody considered me a nurse at that point. I was an HR leader.
You were an HR executive. What were some of the biggest, maybe the top 3 skills you say you got from being that HR leader?
Strategic thinking. I mean, nursing is very, not that you don't think and you assess, right? You absolutely do that. But a lot of it's very much in the moment. Somebody needs something, whether it's pain medication or you're doing your assessments, you're in the middle of a treatment. This was like long-term planning, beyond care planning. So it really taught me that. It taught me how to work at a business executive level. In the hospital, the doctors were the executives, if you will. And there were a few, there was a chief nursing officer, but if you ever got to see her, that was incredible. Because she's busy, right? She was, and it was a she, and she was probably the only woman at the table at the time. Right. So she was busy doing her thing. And so that was the other thing I learned. And I learned a lot, just general business acumen. My first spreadsheets, learning how to use, the early days of Word and Excel and those things. There was no call for that in the hospital. I had no idea, right? Did I know how to use a calculator, let alone put functions into Excel? I knew nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But being at the table really taught me a lot.
So this translated into you becoming a resume writer.
Yeah.
So
one step at a time.
Walk us through that transition. You're an HR executive and you say, you know what? I'm going to go into business for myself. I mean, what happened? Like, give us the story.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that I was that strategic and that I had that much vision. I did not. I had the job. I was an HR leader at this distribution center at this warehouse, and I absolutely loved it. I call it my big fat HR job. I got paid a ton of money. I worked for a wonderful person. The people that I worked for, like the people that I served as an HR person, I loved them. I stayed there and retired. From there, it was the best gig. But they closed the facility. Business changed, the needs changed, and they didn't need that facility anymore. So my job went away, and all 600 people that worked there, their jobs went away. So in the course of that, as the HR leader, I was being called upon to start helping people transition into other jobs. They had to leave our facility and go find new jobs. And in some cases, these people didn't have a lot of skills. They had worked in the warehouse, not a lot of things that they could do. Some people were there 25 years and didn't know anything else. And then sometimes I was working with executives, right? So sometimes it was people in the warehouse, sometimes it was people in the corporate office, but I had to start helping people transition. And so people would come to me, can you look at my resume? Or they would come to me and say, what should I do now? So I really started getting a bit of a feel for kind of career management. And then I had to start thinking about my own career. Well, what do I do next? And of course, we all jump into starting to throw our resumes out. I didn't know any better. But I did get another HR job. I got an HR job, scheduled before I left. But I knew that I really don't want to do HR again. I'd already done it now by this time. It's already over 15 years and I was getting a little tired of it. I loved it. But if I couldn't keep my other job, I didn't know if I wanted to do it, for full time. And then they brought in the people that, the owners, they brought in career transition specialists, outplacement people to work with us, the managers. And I remember sitting at the table and we went around and the coaches that were talking to us, we all had to say what we wanted to do next. And I said, I want to do what you're doing. And that never left me. I said, I love this. I love this energy of helping people kind of figure out the next step. Yeah. And so I went on to the job that I had planned, my next HR job. And then I even took another job after that. I worked that for a while. And then I took another job after that. And that's though when one day, just out of the blue, and this is where trusting your gut comes in, one day, for no reason, it came to my head to say, I bet I could write resumes and I could help people get jobs. There's probably some money to be made in that. I could probably do it. And one day I said, anybody need a resume? I'll write it for you. And I had no clue what I was doing. I started a job. I didn't even realize it was a job. I started a company. I didn't even realize what I was doing. And I just started doing it. And then before you knew it, it was 3 months, 6 months. And I found a thriving business where it was a resume writer and she was a career coach. And I said to her, can I work part-time for you? Can I subcontract for you and learn the business? Sure. I still have my full-time job. Can I work for you? Can I run my own side hustle here and teach me what I need to know about the business? And she took me under her wing and she mentored me. And so I'm running my own business. I have a full-time job. I'm working for her, learning the business, going to get certifications, rebuilding myself, reinventing myself, just like I did in HR, going back for certifications, learning the standards of the industry, networking with people, starting all over again. Until one day, my business was doing so well, I said, I have to make a decision. Am I going to pull the plug? Am I going to jump and really invest the time into my business? Or am I going to stay in HR and play it safe? One day I walked away.
Wow.
And at the time I was working for a university and my daughter was an incoming freshman into that university. Sure. And part of the gig there when you work there is you get free tuition for 4 years. And I said to my daughter, I'm leaving anyway. And I left the free tuition I left the free tuition on the table and I walked away and started and just threw myself into my own business at that time. And she got her student loans. How about that?
Oh, so you had so much confidence going into this role. I mean, you must have absolutely loved it to make that decision.
I did, but I'd be kidding you, Samuel, if I was tell you I was that confident. I was that ignorant. I didn't know what it really took. I was confident.
So you were, okay, I get it. Naively confident. How about that?
Yeah. I like that. Can we? Yeah. Let's can that word, right? I think that's fantastic. You just don't know what you're getting into all the time. Absolutely. You ask the best questions that you can. But I'll tell you what, for anybody that's listening to this, I hope the one thing that you kind of hear throughout this story is really trusting your gut and just taking leaps of faith sometimes. Sure. And things will get put in front of you. Like I didn't really know that I wanted to work in HR, but one opportunity led to another. And one day I had an idea about resume writing and I reached out to this woman I didn't know, and she said, sure, why not? Sometimes you just got to ask for things that you want. Sometimes people will say no, sometimes they will say yes, and it can change the whole trajectory of your life.
At what point? So then you went into resume writing, and you finally did go into business for yourself to the point where you said, I'm gonna bypass paying for getting my daughter's tuition paid for, and I'm going to do this full time. And of course it panned out. When did you realize that it panned out?
When did I realize it? Well, by then I had rented office space because it was pre-pandemic, and I don't know why I felt like I had to meet with people. There were local people that I did meet that, sure. I'm from Buffalo, New York, Samuel, and we're very close knit here. So sure, people like to come into my office, and I was doing some work on I don't know, maybe it was Skype at the time. I don't even know. But I did have clients all over the country. But I'll tell you when I did know that I really kind of made it was when I actually bought a business. So I started my own, set up, threw my shingle out, started seeing clients, started attracting nurses because I was a nurse, started attracting HR people because I was an HR professional.
Yeah.
So I knew what I knew, and people came to me for that. But then the woman that had mentored me, she was the original owner of Inspire Careers, and she passed away. She had cancer and she passed away. She was very young. And then I bought her business. After she passed away, I bought the business from her husband. And I think it was that when I actually bought a business and rolled my other business up into it, then I'm like, yeah, now I think but now I've got more responsibility too.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so fantastic, Cathy. That's an inspiring story. And I love how you keep referring to, you kind of went on your intuition, and your intuition said, hey, let's try this. Let's go here. Let's go here. And you stayed open the whole time. And it took you to opportunity to the point where now you literally created the opportunity for yourself to have your own business. So that is fantastic. So let's change gears a little.
Samuel, may I say one thing? The source
please.
of all of this, and I want to give credit to this, and another friend of mine who's passed again, unfortunately, but I had another nurse friend that I worked with when I first did the case management work. And she said to me, nurses are smart and they can do anything. And she really pushed me for that job in HR and said, you could do that. You're as good as everybody else. And I said, no, I'm not. I don't know anything. And she said, yes, you can. You get there, you go take that job. And I didn't even know, but she had the faith in me. And she always said, nurses are smart. They can do anything. I've never forgotten that. And that was the source really of everything. I feel like everything unfolded and I stepped into it, but she encouraged me. Nurses encourage each other.
I love it. I love that. We need people in our corner to kind of push us into those new unexplored territories. So let's change gears a little bit. You're a resume writer and you focus primarily on medical sales or nurses, or give us your niche.
Well, my niche is executives in general. My niche is executives. I do a lot of work with healthcare professionals. I do a lot of work with medical sales people. I do a lot of work with nurses. Actually, more than nurses themselves, really because of the way the job market is now, it's more with healthcare executives that I work primarily with. So, COOs of hospitals, CNOs, chief nursing officers, those kind of roles. I work with a lot of people in medical sales, capital sales, those type of thing, pharmaceuticals, lots and lots of those people. And I also do a very brisk business working with new college graduates. Some of them go into sales as well. So it's just, yeah. And consulting, they do a lot of consulting too nowadays.
Okay.
The new college grads. Mm-hmm.
So give us a little bit on what makes a good medical sales resume. And I want you to think of the professional that is new to industry. So someone that maybe they were a customer service representative, or maybe they were a nurse or a teacher, or, maybe even a sales rep in a different field. And now they all want to be in medical sales. What would you say are some of the things that have to be on that medical sales resume?
Yeah, what a great question. I'll tell you what, medical sales is so exciting, but it all really forms the basis, starting with transferable skills. You have more skills than you think you do. So if you're looking at a posting online, and you're saying, oh, that sounds like, I would love to go do medical sales. But then you're reading the post and you're like, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. You probably do. You just don't realize it. So it is really about identifying your transferable skills, being able to articulate them. And I'm talking beyond, and it does start with things like time management and organization. It absolutely does, because these things are critical when you are in medical sales. But think about things like complex problem solving, cross-functional collaboration. You know that you're doing this, whether you are a customer service professional, whether you are a nurse. You may not call it those things, but that's the crux of what you're doing. Right. And being able to bring teams together, to be able to influence outcomes. All of these things you're doing, you just aren't giving yourself credit for doing. These are things that are essential in medical sales professionals. And so you have to start looking internally and saying to yourself, let me write this down. What do I really do in the course of a day? And so I encourage people like to write down the action they do. So whatever the task is, and then to put sub bullets underneath it and say, okay, so what am I drawing on to be able to do that? What do I have to do within the context of that? And that's a great way to figure out what these skills are that you're actually using. And before you know it, you've got 20, 30 of them down there and you're like, wow, I never even thought about myself that way.
Right, right. No, that's a good point. When you think about medical sales, we have pharmaceutical sales, we have medical supply sales, we have capital equipment, as you mentioned, and ortho-based medical device sales roles. Would you say that there's a big difference between what those resumes look like, or would you say they kind of all fit under a similar template, for lack of a better word, because they're in the medical sales space?
Well, I do think there is certain things that these companies, certain common threads between all of them that could match for any of those particular lines, those verticals. I absolutely think that. However, the real key is about how you're going to bring value. How can you explain that you're going to bring value to any of those or each of those, and being able to target those jobs specifically, because maybe the jobs aren't so different, but maybe the way the companies function are. So really to be able to market yourself for each of the particular jobs. What I mean is not one size fits all. I don't care if you're in medical sales or anything else. However, there are a huge, you said template. There is a huge foundation of things that are similar across all of these. And if you can harness that, these other things are just tweaks. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Give us maybe the top 5 no-nos. And think of, and I'm sure you're going to say some things that seem obvious, but give us the top 5 no-nos that maybe are a little bit unknown that people writing their resume should definitely keep in mind.
Favorite topic. Thanks for asking. How much time do we have? All right. First thing is, and people don't always think about this, but I see this a lot in the younger crowd, and that's okay, but I'm just going to tell you right now, no pictures on your resume. I don't care. No, there's one exception to that, and that person's not listening to this. So no pictures, no pictures, no pictures. The other thing, a very old, outdated practice that serves no value to you or to the company you want to work for, get rid of that objective statement. I see them every day. Oh, I want a growing position in a growing company and to add value, blah, blah. You're not saying anything. That's an old school practice. They know your objective is to get the job. So instead of that, use 1, 2, 3 sentences, maybe 4. That's cool. To really what I call a branding summary station. Tell me a little bit about you. Why should I hire you? What value are you going to bring to me? Figure out how to tell me very concisely in a couple statements. Objective statements are dead. Branded summary statements are in. So that's the other thing. The other huge mistake, I don't care what business you're in, the other huge mistake is people seem to copy and paste their job description into a new document and call that their resume, right?
Right.
Like, those days are gone too. Nobody cares what you did. What they care about is how you did it and the results you got. So look at those tasks that you're copying and pasting and say, how can I reframe these to show the value that I added? What did I do? Did I, maybe if I'm a nurse in a hospital, was I part of their shared governance, and how much did I participate in? Did I help increase safety numbers and decrease falls? What other committees was I on that I could really demonstrate how I worked cross-functionally, right? What other initiatives were I at that increased patient outcomes that I can take credit for? That's the kind of stuff. And then if you're in some other business, customer service, how many calls did you handle an hour? How many, you all get reports. How many, positive feedback did you receive? How many issues did you resolve in a day, right? These things are critically important. So a list of everything you've always done, nobody cares about that anymore. They care about how you did it and the results. Absolutely. And then the other thing is people still are putting accountability for every job they've ever had since high school. They got their paper routes on there. Get those off. It only needs to be relevant to the job that you're searching for. Nobody cares. Like if I was to put my resume together today, I wouldn't be including my stuff from the 80s unless it had a direct correlation, unless I wanted to go back into the hospital for some reason. And even then my skills are outdated, right? But so you don't have to account for every minute of your time. And listen, I'm also going to say, don't be afraid of that gap in your employment. Maybe you were out of work because of COVID. Maybe you took time off to raise your family. Maybe you took time off to go pursue a degree. Maybe you just said, look, I need to slow my life down. And you decided to take 2 years off. Maybe you took your own sabbatical for your own health or took care of a family member. Just you can include that as a job, meaning one line, personal sabbatical for family care, issue completely resolved, 2020 to 2021. Be done with it. Don't be afraid of gaps, but you also don't need to tell me where you've been every single day, for the past 14 years either. Nobody really cares about that, but relevancy. And so those are the main things that I would say, and they're very basic, right? But it's a shift in the way that people think about resumes, and it's a shift in the way that people think about how employers want to see. They've got a lot of competition out there, 200, 300, 400 jobs at least for these jobs. You got to find a way to stand out.
Yep. This is a fact. But that list was a healthy and great list, and I hope for everyone listening, you're taking notes, because those are definitely things that will help with their resume writing. Thank you for that, Cathy. Cathy, it was wonderful spending time with you today. We got to learn what nurses can do, really how nurses can think when they're thinking about leaving bedside nursing. And I love that you highlighted, listen to your intuition and be open, because as we've discussed, medical sales is a great opportunity for nurses becoming clinical educators and things like that. So they definitely want to be open if they want to leave bedside nursing. One thing I want to do. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. The one thing I've heard this, and I think everybody is for the nurses out there, is that nursing is ranked as the highest trusted profession.
Wow.
Right. Above and beyond everything else. Nurses are the highest trusted profession. Higher than doctors, right? Because people trust us. So if you are a nurse, listen to that. There's equity, there's power in that. And say to yourself, yes, I can do anything. And people want me to. They will trust me. So whether I want to go into medical sales, I want to do something else, but it's a natural progression. People want to listen to nurses. They want advice from nurses. They want care from nurses, whether it's verbal care, whether it's bedside care. You have it to offer them.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Cathy, it was awesome spending time with you today. I want to wrap this up by asking you a few questions. It's our lightning round. You have less than 10 seconds to answer. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First question. Best book you've read in the last 6 months?
Ooh, yes. Best book I have read in the past 6 months was, I read so many of them. I can tell you what it was up here on my shelf. It is, I've read it several times. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Oh,
you got to read that at least once a year. It's classic.
I do. I read it. Yeah. So I just got done rereading it. There you go.
Love it. Love it. Best movie or TV show you've seen in the last 6 months?
Oh my gosh. The Offer, the making of The Godfather. It's on Paramount Plus. I can't get enough. The Godfather is my favorite.
What's it called?
The Offer. It's about the making of the movie The Godfather.
Oh,
and
wow.
The Godfather is my favorite movie of all time. And it's like from the perspective of the producer of the movie and how the movie practically didn't get made.
Oh, wow.
It's fascinating. So if you're a Godfather fan, that one's for you.
Oh, I'm watching that. I am a Godfather fan, so absolutely. Best meal you've had in the last 6 months?
Best meal, spaghetti parmesan, a big plate of spaghetti. And I'm Italian. So I love that kind of food, and it just covered in drippy cheese, delicious. Can't have it too much. Got to watch that cholesterol and the carbs. But every once in a while, it's a treat.
So is this something you make or you have it at a restaurant?
There's a restaurant around town that is the best in town, and you can only go there once every 6 months. I can only because, you got to watch.
What's it called?
Oh, please. I'll put in a plug for Chefs. Chefs here in Buffalo.
Chefs. Because when I visit Buffalo, I'm going to Chefs. Okay.
Spaghetti parm. Call me.
Okay.
I'll treat. Let's go.
All right. And then last question. Best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
The best experience I have had is joining a local networking group. It's called Western New York Entrepreneur. And the whole concept is to mix and mingle with other entrepreneurs, learn from each other, and to be able to get out there. And even if it's not in the same industry, I'm the only one doing what I do, but really to be in an environment with people that are ahead of you, behind you, similar in in your journey where you are, and just listening, absorbing everything from them. I love having meals with them, having relaxed time with them. It's about building relationships, not selling to each other. It's absolutely fantastic. Really has helped me grow personally and professionally.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Some last lines you'd like to share with our audience before we end today, Cathy?
Yeah, medical sales is such a great opportunity, and the field of healthcare, it's never going away. Nurses can do anything, but also think about if you wanted to break into that type of role, you don't have to be a nurse to do it. It's just an extra graded thing. But really, when you're looking to make a change in your career, it's about transferable skills. Consider going for a job, marketing yourself. Tell them why you're unique, and listen to your gut and go for what you want.
Love it. Cathy, again, thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Samuel.
And that was Cathy Lanzalaco. So again, for those of you trying to get into the industry, and even those of you looking for new positions or new fields, I hope you paid attention, because she gave us some great insight into doing a resume. But honestly, that's a very small fraction of what you need to get into a medical sales position, and an even smaller fraction of what you need if you're looking to transition from a different field to another one. If you're really trying to break into the industry, you're going to need a lot more than a good resume. You're going to need a good resume. You're going to need a career portfolio. You're going to need to have a LinkedIn profile that communicates your value to the position. You're going to need to know how to interview, of course, how to network, how to ask the right questions, how to close an interview, what to do before an interview, during an interview, after an interview, your interview skills, how to sell in the space you want to be in. I mean, there's a lot that goes into becoming a medical sales rep. So if you're serious about stepping into this space, then take a serious action. Go to evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain Medical Sales Role, submit an application, and have a conversation with us here at Evolve Your Success, and let us get you into the medical sales role you deserve. And if you're looking to transition to a different role, we can help you as well. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com and select Attain Medical Sales Role. As always, we do our best to bring you innovative guests that are doing things differently, pioneering, trailblazing, and really setting a name for themselves in the medical sales industry. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.